What you can't accept won't change. What you resist persists. I make my clients go into it and feel it and accept it. I'm like, yeah, it's true. No, you're not good enough to be a Major League Baseball player. Just accept it. And through the acceptance, they're able to actually process whatever blockage is in there. And then it creates this open space where energy can't be created nor destroyed. So the same energy that was holding them back is the fuel source for reprogramming themselves.
Brandon Epstein helps elite professional athletes and entrepreneurs how to rewire their subconscious minds for peak performance. In this episode, he reveals his exact 3-phase method for identifying, releasing limiting beliefs that create the performance blocks in even the most successful people.
Using the law of reversibility is really important. So a big part of that process is training yourself to be in the emotional state to create what you want. Truthfully, it's just a byproduct of me living in that emotional state already for so long and just grounding myself into it every day, going into meditation, bringing myself into very deeply relaxed states, going through it, feeling the emotions of it and feeling what I want. It's more about, okay, how do I want to feel? I want to feel abundant. I want to feel purposeful.
The ultimate goal of this method is creating an anti-fragile identity, one that can handle any outcome because it's rooted in what you can control.
Essentially, we try to make it anti-fragile, which is when I do my best, the best possible outcome will happen for me. So we're no longer attaching ourselves to an outcome, but rather attaching ourselves to what's in our control, because the only thing we can control is our focus and our choices. So we want to surrender everything else. There's going to be times where you're going to lose, and that's a part of the game. And so you want to program yourself in this anti-fragile way where your identity can handle those losses, but even if you lose, you're still more than enough.
Before we get into this conversation, I want to ask you to join this amazing community of consciousness explorers. This whole idea of pursuing expanded consciousness and the boundaries of human potential while living a modern life is relatively new, which is why we interview revered masters, teachers, experts, and practitioners to help you on your own journey. To stay up to date on the latest conversations, simply click subscribe below and you'll be notified each time a new episode comes out. I am so grateful for all of your support and comments. I love reading them. Now let's dive into this conversation. Brandon, what's up, brother?
What's up, big dog? Stoked to be here with you, man. We've come a long way on our journey.
This is like a reunion. I was actually trying to think the first time that we hung out in person. Was that in Austin?
Yeah, South by Southwest.
Cool.
2013,
Yeah.
2014. I think that was it.
Yeah, man. And at that point, you were just really kind of getting started in teaching this stuff, I think.
Yeah. I had graduated college a couple years beforehand. Nobody wanted to hire me to do the work I'm doing now one-to-one. I had some people pay me $30 a session here and there, but I was running my meditation app company because I couldn't get enough money coming in one-to-one. So I was like, all right, let me use technology to bring it to the people. And so I was running that meditation app company where I was like, just coming up with meditation I knew that would help people. And then I was just putting them on these apps. And that was the vehicle at the time when we were hanging out. And that's how I was doing my thing.
So for the listeners that don't know the now famous Brandon Epstein after being on Joe Rogan, what is it that you do? How would you describe that?
Yeah, I help high performers rewire their minds for more peace, power, and presence. And anyone who's in this space, and I know a lot of people who are listening to your show, they understand that all their power lies in the present moment, always, right? You can't do anything in the past, can't do anything in the future. So my job fundamentally is to rewire the belief systems. And I call it the code of the subconscious mind. So people can just be present, connect to their higher power, God, source, whatever you want to refer to, and use that inspiration to show up and perform their best, have the aha moments, connect to their creativity, and show up as their best version of themselves.
And can you share a little bit more about the types of people you work with?
Sure. I'm working with, really, I work with people who I'm personally interested with. Like I have the luxury now of just working with clients that I just am curious about their work because it's my hobby. So I play football in college, so I work with a fair amount of NFL players. I also boxed for a long time, so I work with boxers, UFC fighters. I worked as a business owner before this as well, built a big social media following. So I work with some influencers, business owners, DJs, and just people who I'm excited about going on the journey because they're coming to me because they're stuck. They have some issue. They have a lot of potential, but like there's this invisible blockage that's holding them back from having a more peaceful experience, having more just flow in their life, more synergy in their relationships, or better physical health. And yeah, and then I get the pleasure of helping them move beyond those blockages. So really it's people who are in business, professional sports, entertainment, and that sums it up. And I get like a random person here and there, but it's really the people I want to serve, the people that I'm personally interested in, because a big kind of evolution in my consciousness journey was moving from the needing to be the savior, right? And being like, oh, I need to work with this person out of like obligation of like, oh, they're suffering, so I should help them. But what I realized was my inspiration is not going to be there if I'm just working with everyone. And so I'm not that guy who goes and tries to save the world. Instead, I connect to my genuine inspiration in my heart, and I support the people that are coming into my world that I'm inspired to help because I'm excited about what they're working on, what's going on in their life. I'm curious about it. I want to learn more about it. You know, I started working with this guy's going to be competing in the Winter Olympics in snowboarding. It's like, I'm not good at snowboarding, but I'm fascinated. I'm like, how does this guy, do 720 twists in the air? Like, what does it require mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically to do those types of things? And so it's people like that I'm just really curious about and want to support.
That's amazing. You know, what's curious for me is like, you would make the assumption, you're talking about people that are at the top of their game, whether that's a pro athlete or business person or entertainer. Presumably these people's beliefs would be dialed. Like they would have incredible beliefs that have fueled their success. But it seems like that's not always the case. Like, what have you observed about these people's consciousness before they come into this work?
Yeah. I know you're familiar with the book, and I think a lot of your audience might be as well, Power versus Force, and by David Hawkins. You know that book, right?
Oh yeah, of course. It's a
Yeah,
classic.
Yeah,
it's essential.
So a lot of people come to me and they've got their success by just forcing it, just pure will, maybe a lot of natural talent, maybe some good connections. And so they're able to force themselves to a place where they've produced a lot. They've made money or they've gotten to the top of their field. But that doesn't change the fact that their subconscious may still hold a lot of beliefs that are making them suffer unnecessarily, right? Just because you're successful doesn't mean you're fulfilled, right? Tony Robbins, the ultimate failure is, success without fulfillment. And so I found that a lot of these really successful people come to me because, okay, maybe they have some success, but there's something deeper within them that's not at ease, that they're not finding that peace that they've been seeking. And they've now achieved a lot of the material stuff they want. And now they're like, well, come on, this is supposed to be it. Like, I'm supposed to be here now. I should have arrived. And they don't feel like they're quite there yet. And so that's, a very common theme that I see. And of course, most people come to me because there's some issue pressing in their life, right? It might be a baseball player that is having a bad season. And so he wouldn't have gone to this consciousness work unless he was having a bad season. But as he comes to me, I'm basically flipping his perception of the world of, okay, I need to go find things outside of myself to create what I want to feel inside. And I flip that for them. And I say, okay, no, we're going to actually create the feelings that you want inside of yourself. And that's going to help you be more successful in the physical world. And even if you don't get all the physical, external material results you want, you feel good. So you're winning the game of life.
Who doesn't want that, right? That sounds pretty good.
That's it, man.
I think one of the biggest challenges, and I've been on my own journey of uncovering limiting beliefs and working with them for years now. And one of the biggest challenges is that they're so ingrained into our perception, we don't even know they're at play. And so whatever some of your de facto pathways to start to get to some of these concepts that are stifling our potential.
Yeah, I think in our society, especially in the Western world, we try to solve problems from the head mostly, right? How do I outthink my problems? And usually that just keeps you in this cycle of rumination. How do I get out of this? But you're in this cycle, right? Because a lot of research in psychology tells us that we're having 95% of the same thoughts every day. We're just living the day on repeat over and over and over again, right? Just like the Truman Show. And so the only way you break out of that is you actually have to get out of your head and go into the somatic body, the feeling experience. And so when someone comes to me and they say, hey, it's an athlete, I keep feeling when I get put in these situations, I pause them right there and I say, okay, close your eyes. I want you to actually feel what's coming up in these moments. Go down into it, down into it. And they hold them in the tension of feeling the emotion. And a lot of people are blocked. They can't even get there. So we have to clear out the belief that feeling your feelings makes you weak or vulnerable, or that you're going to be taken advantage of by doing so. So we have to get past that blockage, which is a big one, especially for high achieving men. Once we're able to get back past that, we're able to go down into the feeling body and connect to the emotion that's present. A lot of times it's anxiety, fear of loss, fear of not being enough. And once we feel that in the body there, I ask them to connect to the emotion. And then I just ask them, hey, what do you believe to be true right now that would make you feel this way? And I hold them in the tension of the emotion. I say, don't go back up to your head to try to find the answer. I hold them in the somatic feeling body. And oftentimes you'll feel that, right? Anxiety, fear usually lives in the solar plexus area and the upper stomach. I'm like, just stay there, stay there, stay there. And it's like spiritual weightlifting. I keep them down there long enough to where, boom, it's almost like a purge. It comes up and out. Well, I believe blah, 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 blah. I believe this. And once that's been exposed through the body, we can take them through the process of releasing it, which is essentially we accept it, because all the Zen proverbs are true. What you can't accept won't change. What you resist persists. And usually it's like, if you have a vulnerability or an insecurity, you're trying to think your way out of it or avoid it. And I make my clients go into it and feel it and accept it. I'm like, yeah, it's true. No, you're not good enough to be a Major League Baseball player. You're not. Just accept it. No, you're not. Yeah, you are going to lose your job. Yeah, you're not going to have a career where you achieve everything you want. And through the acceptance, they're able to actually process whatever blockage is in their body. And I have some techniques that allow them to surrender that into the past. And then it creates this open space where energy can't be created nor destroyed. So the same energy that was holding them back, was creating these blockages, now is the fuel source for reprogramming themselves the new belief, which is the opposite, which is, I believe I'm more than good enough to play baseball. I believe that I have all the talent and skill and experience to be successful at this level throughout a long career. And so that's essentially the process. We feel in the body, we accept it, we surrender it into the past, and then we transmute that belief to the opposite. And then there's some techniques that I use to help them feel into it and somatically program it back into the body. And when they do that, it should feel like presence. It shouldn't be like anything crazy. It should just feel like, oh, I have a clear mind. I have no mind. I'm just here. I'm ready to just go do what I need to do.
Your methodology sounds very similar to a lot of the inner work that I've done. And, I can verify it's incredibly powerful. I think one of the things that comes up is that when you're facing something you're terrified of, right? With one of these beliefs or potentialities, the notion of accepting that feels really scary. I don't know if you've ever dealt with that, where it's like you have to accept like something potentially true about yourself. How do you encourage people to move through that?
I just expose it and I just speak to them a little bit rationally about it. I'm like, listen, this has been stuck in you. We can go back and we can look at the timeline of your life, and we can look at all the times in your life where you've been stuck in this cycle over and over and over again. Do you want to keep living this cycle, or are you ready for things to change? And they're always ready for things to change. And so they're willing to do the work. And that's the thing. Like, that's why I said I also like working with high performers, because I've also had earlier in my career and people who aren't willing to go there. And so they stay stuck. But now the clients that I'm attracting are the ones who are willing to go there, right? They've already taken on so much in their life that they're willing to go into the fire and be forged by the fire to come out the other side. And so it's appealing to their rational mind at first, and then it's creating enough trust with them to make them feel comfortable enough to go into it and to die. That's what happens, right? They're going through an ego death of sorts, because this is built into their ego identity, and that has to die for them to be reborn into something new. So it's trust, it's appealing to the rational mind, and it's holding the space and just guiding them step by step through it. And, my sensei I've been very blessed with taught me a lot of like toilet zen, he calls it, where like
Nice.
you just say kind of silly things to help them kind of break their state a little bit NLP stuff to kind of get past like the fear that's coming up, like if I have a client that is, and this isn't my saying, this is from my sensei, but if they're constantly trying to force it and force it and force it and make things happen and force it, I go, bro, you don't have to squeeze your dick to take a piss, do you? And they go, no. I'm like, all right, well, let it go. Just allow it to flow. Right. So I have a lot of those little sayings, those little metaphors that allow them to kind of like break state, relax into the work that's being done and be like, okay, fine, I can go into this. I'm going to allow myself to go down into it and release. And so that's usually what it looks like, bro.
What I think one thing that I've learned that is also like, acceptance does not mean that you're destined for that thing, right? It's like this to me is like a big, I guess, confusion point for a lot of people where it's like, oh, accept that I think I'm a failure. That doesn't mean that you're now going to be a failure. It's just like you're accepting that in this moment, there was that inner material that lived there.
And even, Eminem has that song, I am whatever you say I am. If I wasn't, then why would you say I am? Right. And there's like so much power in those lyrics because a lot of people I deal with as well, they're dealing with the fear of judgment from others. Okay, are people thinking this about me? Or am I thinking this about myself? Okay, fine. I am whatever you say I am. And through the acceptance of it, that's why, Eminem in that movie was able to go on stage and he was able to just let it rip and finally let himself free and get beyond all the blockages and just get into his flow state when he was freestyling, was because he just accepted fully. Fine. My buddy did shoot himself in the leg. Yeah, the other guy did have sex with my girlfriend. Like, yes, it's all true. Accept. Yeah, I do live in a trailer park. Accept it. So it's like through the acceptance, we actually set ourselves free and we create space for transformation.
What about on the kind of insertion of like a new belief that you mentioned, or like the rewiring part? It's like, cool, we've faced that. It's like two questions I have. What are the essential things for that to be as powerful as possible? And then how do you think about like where that new information comes from? And I'll give you an example. Like something comes up. It's like someone, let's say they have a poverty mindset and they're like, okay, cool. Well, now I'm going to insert the new belief that I'm like rich as shit. Right. And I'm like, all right, well, is that productive? So curious how you think about those things.
Yeah. What was the first part of it again? Before we actually,
in terms of like this, the kind of like replacement process,
yeah,
the new belief, what are the like most important factors for that to be as powerful as it can be?
A lot of practitioners have different modalities they use. I think like Tony Robbins has his own, right? If you go and like experience his work, there's ways that he does it. There's a lot of practitioners that have their own modalities. First of all, the first most important thing is you have to be in the emotional frequency that you want to bring your client into, right? Let's say if you're working one-to-one on this. And Scott, I know this isn't something that a lot of people want to hear, and it's not like a sexy thing, but I needed a coach, a guide to actually take his torch and light mine so I could learn how to do this for myself. I think it really is one of those things where like it requires a guide who can anchor themselves in a frequency and bring you up into it. So that's a really important part of it. And that's a struggle, right? Because people are like, well, what if I can't afford it? And there's people at different levels. That's a beautiful thing, right? Like you could have found me when I was charging $30 and like maybe it took you to another level, right? And then you create some success in your life and then you are able to get someone who's a little higher level and then up and up and upwards. But I think that's the first thing. The person who's doing the work with you needs to be anchored in the emotional frequency that you're trying to create for yourself. So if you are trying to move past beliefs around poverty or scarcity, they need to a certain degree have already gotten there themselves. This is my belief, right? I'm not saying it's right or wrong or it's necessarily like a universal truth. This has been my belief forged through my experience. And so I think your practitioner needs to be anchored in it. That's why I think it's important for us as people who are working in this consciousness space, like just like you talk about in your book, that you're able to do the consciousness work, but then you're able to actually transmute it into material success as well. So you're operating from abundance, because if you have someone come to you and they're stuck here with abundance and you're still stuck in scarcity, it's hard to guide them to someplace that you've never been. And so for me, it's getting with a practitioner who can actually hold that frequency of where you want to go. And then as regards to the modality itself.
Can I ask a specific question on that? Because I think like, I'm just reflecting on my own teacher. I would not call her a wealthy person at all. But she's incredibly wise and incredibly deep on her consciousness path. And I think she has like an abundance mindset. But like her outer life might not reflect that. So just with this particular example, like, can you, because I think it's like, okay, cool, I go get a teacher, but like most of these teachers aren't wealthy, or like, there's kind of like the material expression, but then there's like the deeper like frequency stuff that you're talking about. Can you just highlight that distinction?
Yeah, I think it's the frequency of abundance, right? Of freedom. And if you're able to be in that emotional state, doesn't mean you need to have $10 million in the bank account. It just means that you're able to anchor yourself there. You feel abundance. It doesn't mean that you need to make the same amount of money that your client wants to make per se, but can you anchor yourself in that frequency of abundance, of having more than enough, of living in the state of a calm nervous system? Because ultimately that's what they want, right? They don't want just the money. They want the feelings that the money is going to give them, which is feeling at ease, that nervous system that's calm, feeling like they can just be present for whatever they're doing. Does that resonate?
Yeah, definitely.
So I was more referring to like someone who's still living in a state of scarcity, because I've also worked with those practitioners as well. And it's like, they may be really good at healing different things, but if they haven't worked that out within themselves, it may be a struggle for them to take you there.
I remember hearing you talk about, like, one thing I was really interested in is when I listened to your Rogan episode, you talked about that fighter who had this belief that like he couldn't lose. Right. And then he ended up losing. And then like, I was curious about like, what was the work required after that? Right. Because I think a lot of people were probably like, oh, well, I want to aspire to have that, like, I can't lose thing, because then I'll be invincible. And then, this was an interesting example of like, well, maybe there's actually something bigger than that that's even more expansive and free.
I don't have his notes in front of me, so I can't remember exactly what we transmuted, but the essence of it was the old identity was I can't lose. And then that was shattered when he lost, right? So it was like he had this attachment to not losing. And so then this immediately it was replaced with a new belief that, oh, like I'm going to lose. Like I'm going to lose anything I do. And so that was like, it was almost like the old belief was shattered and this new identity was forming around like the state of like insecurity, very fragile in that state of like, who am I now that I've lost? And so what we did was we had him like accept his way through. Okay, yeah, you are a loser. You are going to lose. Like all of that, all of the insecurities and fears that were coming up from, we had him accept his way through that, to just process it somatically in his body, feel all the emotions that need to be felt. Almost like, I do this with some like people who've been to war too. It's like processing the full PTSD of that experience, letting his body actually feel all the feelings that need to be felt. And a lot of times this can be very volatile, right? Sometimes they have to get out a pillow and they feel deep into it, and it's almost like an eruption of a volcano, and they have to scream into the pillow, and it's like a somatic release up the center line of all the chakras as it comes out of the back of their throat. Wow, release to get it out. Sometimes it's tears, and sometimes it's just like crying their eyes out. So a lot of times with those big events, it's like there needs to be some type of big somatic emotional release to then rebuild the identity, to go through the rebirth of, okay, now what do we want to believe to be true now, right? And essentially we try to make it anti-fragile, which is, I believe when I do my best, the best possible outcome will happen for me. I believe that everything's happening in my best interest. And so we're no longer attaching ourselves to an outcome, but rather attaching ourselves to what's in our control, because the only thing we can control is our focus and our choices. And so we want to surrender everything else, because yeah, things could happen. When you're at the highest level in business, sport, anything, like, yeah, there's going to be times where you're going to lose, and that's a part of the game. And so you want to program yourself in this anti-fragile way where your self-esteem, your identity can handle those losses, because it's not about, you're not like holding on to the last victory or loss to get your self-esteem, but rather you are believing that when you do your best, that's more than enough. And even if you lose, you're still more than enough. And even if you lose all your opportunities in the future, you're going to be okay. So there's like many layers of these different beliefs that have to be rebuilt. And that's kind of what I do with a guy like that. I rebuild his identity with these new subconscious beliefs that are aligned with what's actually in his control.
Let's talk about bringing your whole self to work. If you're like many executives, including myself at one point, you might be living a double life. You have your personal career, and then you have your personal growth journey. Conscious Talent is changing that as the world's first executive talent firm specializing in connecting leaders and companies who embrace inner work. Imagine finding job opportunities where your contemplative practice, latest retreat experience, and commitment to your personal evolution are seen as strengths, not secrets. What if you actually felt like your career supported this aspect of your life versus competed with it? Conscious Talent is building a community of leaders and companies who are committed to both combining professional excellence with personal transformation. If you're ready to merge your two worlds with a fully aligned career, join the movement at conscioustalent.com. Here you can sign up for our talent collective to stay on top of future opportunities or find your next transformative team member. Besides the kind of like face, accept, and replace process, are there other ways that you reinforce this belief, like that new identity and belief system, like other practices? And is there anything that like he does on his own without your guidance?
For sure. A couple things. I think that using the law of reversibility is really important. And this was hijacked a little bit by, the law of attraction and people getting a little confused about that. But really, the law of reversibility is however you want to feel when you get there, can you anchor yourself in that feeling now? And so spending time in meditation every day, feeling those feelings of how you want to feel when you think you're going to get to this place. And hopefully, and this has happened many times with fighters, when they're going through a camp with me, it's like, when you get to that place, it shouldn't be like, oh my God, I can't believe I made it. It should be more matter of fact, because you've been living that emotional state. Like Mike Tyson says, you have to be the champ before you become the champ. And so a big part of that process is training yourself to be in the emotional state to create what you want. Like, truthfully, everything that I've created, including being a Rogan and everything that's happened from it, is just a byproduct of me living in that emotional state already for so long and just grounding myself into it every day, going into meditation, bringing myself into very deeply relaxed states, going through it, feeling the emotions of it and feeling what I want, right? It's not even so much about like the material things that are there, because that doesn't really matter. It's more about, okay, how do I want to feel? I want to feel abundant. I want to feel purposeful. I want to feel like really busy working with the clients that I love. I want to feel like deep peace. I want to feel ease. I want to feel like I'm taken care of. I want to feel like I can take care of my family, all of those emotions. So there's that. And then on the other side of me doing this reprogramming process with my clients, I have them record all the new beliefs. So there's usually like a script that ends up coming out of this work where it's like, okay, I believe I'm more than enough. I believe I have more than enough experience to be successful in my field. And so they have this script, and I have them record a voice memo on their phone reading this script out loud. And then they send it to me, and I just put some alpha brainwave frequencies behind it, and I create a custom meditation. And so we are the most receptive when we're just waking up in the morning and we're falling asleep at night, because that's when we're in less beta brainwaves or more in that alpha theta state. And so I haven't listened to it at that time to continue to incept these beliefs and anchor them into it. So it's a way of priming yourself for the day. And then at night, it's a way of priming your subconscious mind to receive this and to fully step into it.
Nice. I love that. That's a really cool idea. I believe there's also like someone said this, but like I forget where, but it's like the resonance of your own voice is like particularly powerful. Like if you listen to like Brandon saying those things or like some affirmation tape versus like if you spoke it and or heard yourself speaking it, there's some kind of enhanced power there.
a lot of people, they want me to do it. I'm like, no, the whole purpose is that you're going to do it. Because at first, a lot of people don't like hearing their own voice because they don't have that relationship built with themselves. They don't fully accept and love themselves. So when they hear their voice, they cringe. But that's actually a part of building that relationship and healing that relationship with themselves, is listening to it. And after a while, people fall in love with it and they love to listen to it. And that's a beautiful process, because it's really like there's healing even in that, of being able to like receive the encouragement and the affirmation from yourself and actually receive those words instead of cringing and being like, oh, I don't believe it. Because eventually you will, because the subconscious learns through repetition. Like, all this conscious stuff is complicated, but it's also really simple, right? Like, we reprogram ourselves through acceptance, surrender, transmuting the belief. And so I'm going to come back to that question you asked earlier about like, how do you choose a belief? It's the law of polarity. I don't know if you read the book, The Kabbalion. Have you read that one?
No.
You would
Sounds
love it,
interesting.
bro.
Is it
I'll
about
send
the
it to you after
Kabbalah?
this. No, it's actually, it's based off of like what apparently a lot of people believe is like what a lot of the major religions have stemmed from. So it's like the root of everything. And it has all these like laws in it. And one of these laws is the law of polarity, which is like the transmutation process should always be the opposite polarity, right? Masculine, feminine, dark, light. And so if someone believes, for example, okay, I believe I'm going to be poor forever. Now, if you just say the affirmation, I believe I'm going to be rich forever, it doesn't do anything. You actually have to remove the old belief to create space for the new one to take form. Once you do that, okay, I believe I'm going to be rich forever. It's not like it happens immediately, but what does happen is that you start to receive the messages, information, because it's all in the subconscious field. It's all there for you. It's in your field. If you've ever seen the movie Limitless, it's like that's what he's able to do. He's able to call upon every piece of information he's ever accessed before. He sees like the corner of the book in the girl's bag, and he starts talking about a passage from the book that he read a few years earlier from a girl he was dating. So maybe rationally we won't be able to come up with that information, but subconsciously, if we get aligned, maybe there's some information you've accessed at some point that's going to bubble up in the belief of I'm going to be rich forever. And maybe it's like a small action. It's like, you know what? I'm going to put some money into this investment. Maybe I'm going to start to use a skill I've never utilized and start to make some money from it. But the belief itself is just an opening. It creates a pathway towards being curious and inspired enough to pursue that path. Because what happens with most people is they just get stuck and they don't move, right? 95% of the same thoughts over and over every single day. So by choosing this new belief, we're using the law of polarity to put them into the frequency of what that could be. And over time, their body begins to receive it through the repetition at the subconscious level. And that's why we do those subconscious belief audios, listening to them every single day over and over and over again. Because eventually your subconscious is like, okay, fine. It just receives whatever is being repeated over and over again.
Nice. I love that. One of the things that I'm curious about is like, what is your opinion of all this on material reality? And I'll kind of break this down. I think there's an audience of people that are like, okay, yeah, it's like if I have good beliefs, like I'll take right action and good things will happen, right? Totally buy that. Then there's the people that are like, no, like consciousness is more fundamental. Like your consciousness, which is inclusive of your beliefs, is literally projecting your experience. So like whatever you believe, you're going to get, and you're going to experience. And so where do you fall on that continuum?
I think it's both. I definitely think it's both, and the first part of it that you talked about is like, oh yeah, okay. Well, I can understand that my beliefs are deleting, distorting, and generalizing the information that comes in. And so, yeah, of course, I'm going to notice things I didn't notice before if I change my belief system, or I'm going to see possibilities, right? Like if your friend gets on this diet and they lose a bunch of weight, but you believe diets don't work, it doesn't matter how much success your friend has. I lost 100 pounds. Diets don't work, right? And so materially, it's like when you change that belief to, I believe the right diet works for me, then you might see that diet. Oh, you lost 100 pounds of that? Okay, I believe that maybe that could work for me. So that's that side of it. And that's usually in my work with most people. how I communicate this, because then we're getting to the woo-woo stuff, the stuff that Rogan pushed back on me a little bit, that I fully believe,
No,
which
no
is that,
pushback here.
yeah, right. I know I'm talking to the right guy about this, but I don't even need to talk about it as much to them because it just happens. It just happens, man. Like it's magic. It is magic to a degree, the way
Do you
things
have any
show up for you.
cool stories of some of your clients that
Oh, man,
were kind of showcase the magic?
I have so many, man. I have one that I really like that I think is just so cool. It's so synergistic. Like it's like a fairy's tale. One of these boxers that I've worked with for years, like before he came to me. So context: his dad's a Hall of Fame boxer, one of the best boxers ever lived. Nobody in his family wanted him to box. He even was told by his stepmom, like, "You're never going to be your dad. Like, just get it through your head." And so when I met him, he was living on his boxing coach's couch, and that's where we started to develop a relationship. And over time, we started to rewrite all of his belief systems into being worthy of being in the spotlight. Because that's kind of like, I think a lot of us have like a main piece of shadow work that we were put on this earth to move through. For his, it was like, you don't deserve to be in the spotlight. You deserve to live in the shadows. And it was like all the work we did was to put him into the spotlight. And this all kind of coalesced into this one moment where he got this fight, and it was like literally the story that he was living. I have goosebumps coming up right now because it's literally his story. So have you seen the movie Creed?
Of course.
So in the movie Creed, it was basically like it was his story. His dad was the stud, Apollo Creed. Nobody wanted the son to fight. Hey, listen, we have all the money. You don't need to do this. Like, why are you trying to be your dad? You're never going to be your dad. He kind of had to fight through all of that to actually become a champion. And my client was like living this same story. And so we get this fight. And we've already talked about this, me and my client, of how much he's living the Creed story. Well, the opponent is the same opponent that Michael B. Jordan fought in the movie Creed. So like the actor from the movie was actually a real boxer, right? So we manifest the actual fighter that was in Creed fighting for a championship to actually fight. Not only that, but he gets the same cut man from the movie Creed, this guy named Stitch. He's very famous in like the boxing UFC world. So he's the same cut man that's working on Michael B. Jordan is working in his corner. And
What's
so
a
he
cut
goes
man?
out there.
Just
Cut man
just
is the
so
guy,
it's-
yeah, he puts like ice on your face in between the rounds. If you get cut open, they put some Vaseline in it. So he's got all that happening, and it's like everything comes together where he has like the performance of his career. Like the fight, he was like a big underdog in the fight. He wasn't supposed to win. He comes in there and he won a secondary title in that fight, beating the guy that Michael B. Jordan beat, with the cut man from Michael B. Jordan, living the Creed story in real life. And for him, it was like this full circle of when he went through and did all the transmutation of his beliefs. This was the manifestation of it. And everybody was just like in awe in the boxing world because they didn't believe, just like he didn't believe he could ever get to this level. But it was the manifestation of change in belief actually changed the reality that he got to experience. And it all came together there where he was like, I'm actually living the Creed story. And so cool thing about this guy as well is like that was a secondary title, and he's actually fighting for the middleweight championship, the main title, this month in a couple weeks. So that'll be like the icing on the cake of that whole story. But just a lot of stuff like that, man, where it's like we're like pinching ourselves, like this is so weird, like how it all comes together that way.
That's so crazy. Yeah, I just man, I just love that you're doing this. It's like it's really like turning people on to just how much more sovereignty and power they have.
I'll give you an example too, bro, from my personal life recently. So this is very vulnerable.
Please tell me more.
So I told you before we got on here that I'm building this retreat center down in Colombia, and I started about a year and a half ago. And I thought I had a lot of cool things going on. I was like, there's no way I'm not going to be able to finish funding this when the time comes. And the time came this past August where I thought that one of these things were going to happen, right? I'm pretty much all in on crypto. So I was like, either, we're going to get that bull run before this. I'm going to be able to liquidate that, and I'm going to be able to finish paying for the construction of this retreat center. Or I had a home that I'm not living in anymore. It's just sitting there. And I'm like, I'm going to be able to sell the home, and I'm going to be able to liquidate that, and I'm going to be able to finish this construction. Crypto hasn't hit yet. Home's just not selling because of the market. I don't have the money. I need a couple $100,000 I don't have to finish this construction. Literally, the week that my guy who's doing my construction says, hey, dude, now we're going to need all the money, I get on Rogan. I had no idea that I was going to be on Rogan. I told you 2 years ago almost, I had my like PR company I hired pitch me a few times. They said no 3 times. Out of nowhere, a year and a half after ending that engagement, I get a text message saying Rogan wants to have you on there. I get on Rogan, I blow up, I become the go-to person in this space. My business explodes, and now I'm able to fund this construction. And it's all going to come together in the absolute perfect timing, which is honestly unbelievable and probably sounds irresponsible to most people who are like, I would never do that. But like, that's my life, bro. That's what happens. I get what I need when I need it.
That's incredible. I love this story so much. Thanks for telling it. What was your mindset? I mean, like before the Rogan thing happened and you were kind of in that liminal in between where you're like, I don't have the money. Like, how were you reacting to that? Like, what were you doing internally in that space?
The whole first half of this year has been incredible amounts of tension I've had to sit into. First of all, because I decided like I wanted to be able to do more physical healings on people. And I had one physical thing that I needed to deal with. And so I started off the year by deciding I had hypothyroidism, underactive thyroid. So for the last like 6 years, I was taking medication for it. And I was like, I know I can heal myself of this. Of course, if you go to a doctor, they're like, be grateful, just take a pill every day, you're fine. And that works with the symptoms. But I was like, nope, like if I'm going to be the conduit to heal people like I know I can, I'm going to heal this for myself. And so I started the year in this incredible tension of slowly like doing all these interventions, like really taking myself through the ringer of like pulling away all the comforts of food and eating the most simplistic diet. I pulled away caffeine, all my crutches were gone and I was just dying. I was dying this old identity of the neediness and the attachment. And then I was slowly starting to reduce my medication. And then one day I had the download just in my subconscious, bubbled up into my conscious mind. It goes, you're done with it. I'm done with it. Yeah, you're done with the medication. And it was so clear. It was like, boom, right in the heart. And I was like, I'm still a rational person. So like I go ChatGPT, hey, like, can I just stop taking the rest of my medication? And ChatGPT says, well, why don't you try like going one day on, one day off? So I do that. I go one day on, feel okay. Next day off, feel okay. Go the next day taking it on, my body completely rejects the medication. I feel lethargic. I feel like I have no energy. I feel like terrible. And it's like my body was saying, we told you you're done. I have not taken the medication since that day. My body's completely healed itself. So that was the tension I was sitting into earlier in this year. That's another example, right? Of that's not rational. That's just like, as I was going through this process, I was reprogramming all the beliefs that were coming up that were saying that I couldn't heal myself as well. And so I was going through all that reprogramming because basically like I don't do this work unless like something presents itself or like I need to get over a hurdle and then it exposes itself, right? It's like Rumi says, the wound is where the light gets in. So here's my wound. I'm dealing with this issue. And now I need to go back in and do the work to get through this issue. And so once I got through that, it was like, all right, great. But now I'm in this place where nothing, like I did all this great physical healing. I created exactly what I wanted, but I don't have the money to finish this construction. And we already started there. Like I can't back out now. Like we already had this plan. We're going to go down there. We're going to live at the retreat center this winter. It was like, and so what I kept visualizing every day, I just tell myself, I was like, and of course, I'm a human being. So this was a lot. There was anxiety there. There was tension I was sitting in. But I told myself, what if you got to the end of the year and it all got paid for and I got done? Why stress now if you know you're going to get there anyway? And that was like basically the narrative I kept telling myself. If you know you're already going to get there, if you believe you're going to get there, because I feel like I'd done the work in my belief system to get there, I was like, why don't you just let go? And so I just continue to visualize every single day using the law of reversibility of like being in that home, having clients down, hosting retreats, bringing family in, just like the emotions of having my kids out in nature and just like the beautiful energy I wanted to live in every single day. And even though there's tension, bro, there's so much tension. Through the tension came this one big break. And that was getting on Rogan, and that opened up everything for me, and that created all the resources I needed to get the job done. But the answer is I was doing all the work that I give to my clients, and still, man, that's a part of life. I think sometimes you still are sitting into the tension of the rational mind going, yeah, but dude, it's not here yet. I can't see it. We're not there yet. Come on, like when's it going to happen? The when, the how, the what. And so I just continued to stick to my guns, man. I just kept doing my ritual every day. I would actually do some other things. I was like going overboard. I write down, I believe I'm so happy and grateful that my house has been fully funded. You know, I believe I'm so happy and grateful that I fully healed myself without medication. I go through these, I write these things down. I'd visualize them. I live in the emotion of it. And I just go outside and I put my feet in the grass every day and start my day, be in the sunshine, meditate with it, and then just move forward with the tension of still not being there.
That's very inspiring, brother. You're making me think about some things that I need to do that with. Like your level of intensity of reprogramming yourself is very inspiring.
And then, I don't know, I was thinking about this earlier today. I'm like, I don't know, you know, I don't have the answer to this, but it's like, would it have been better to not put myself in so much tension and just get there when I get there? Or is it good to put myself through the fire in that way, to like put myself in a position where the manifestation needs to happen now, but there's tremendous tension leading up to it? And of course, on the other side of it, you go, I wouldn't have it any other way. But if you asked me 6 months ago, I would have been like, why'd you do this to yourself? So it's an interesting like juxtaposition of like weighing those two things.
Well, what comes up for me is like, do we even have a choice? Like, it seems like my soul has like put me in these positions that are like so fucking difficult. But essentially, what's required to move through them is like a forging of virtue, a forging of skill and wisdom, a forging of greater love for myself. And I'm like, dude, it would be so much easier if I didn't have to go through this. Like, I didn't choose this. Like, this showed up. This sucks. And it feels like I didn't have a choice. And it feels like a higher aspect of myself has designed this so that I get that growth that I probably came here for and really want.
I agree. You probably don't have so much of a choice in it, right? How much is it free will? And I guess that's a question, right? How much is it free will? And how much is it, you know, before we were put into this conscious experience, we said, hey, this is the path I want to go down. Because sometimes I think about like mediums. Have you ever worked with any mediums?
I've definitely, I wouldn't say like consistently work, but like I've definitely done a bunch of sessions with intuitives and those type of people.
Yeah. And it's like, I haven't done so many myself, but it's almost like they kind of know your life path even before it happens. So it's like, if they kind of have the writing on the wall, then yeah, how much is it just my free will?
Yeah. I don't know. You know, I know there's people that think, like very wise people that I've had on the show that believe that it, like literally down to the thought is like all pre-planned. And then there's people that are like, no, you have some major things, but then there's like all these different timelines and probabilities. And you, as you know, consciousness, have a choice as you go through those experiences to kind of continually shape the timeline or probability of things. And I don't really know.
I don't know either, but I feel like I resonate more with the second, like that there's multiple timelines you can go down. Just my rational mind understands that more, right? It goes, okay, I see the timeline I'm in coming down, and now, and especially when I work with my clients, I see how like there's all these timelines it could take. There's all these possibilities, and it's like, and when we change the program in the present moment, you see him kind of just go down a new timeline, and it feels like, I don't know, maybe I was destined to work with them to bring them down that new timeline. But also people do have to choose. They have to choose to do this work. They have to choose to leave their suffering behind and actually commit to going through the fire to come out the other side. So I don't know.
One question I had for you is like, so you're out here doing this badass stuff with elite people, specifically like elite athletes is interesting to me. What is the state of this industry? Like, is there a world where does like every professional NFL team, like in the next 5 years, going to have a Brandon Epstein on the team, like working with people's consciousness? Or is it more just like still like there's like a few people doing it and you kind of got to seek it out yourself?
Yeah, I'd say it's more the latter. Most teams have sports psychologists now, but it's a little bit messy because think about it this way. Are you going to divulge your deepest insecurities and vulnerabilities to someone who works for your boss? Probably not. And that's kind of where it comes from. You'll go surface level with them. Hey, do you want to give me some like imagery techniques, or do you want to help me with goal setting? Sure, you'll do that. But will you actually go to that deep level? Usually the answer is no. And that's kind of where I get my clients is they have had that option and they just don't want to go there with that person because they're like, oh, I mean, I've even heard stories of people divulging something to, their counselor, sports psychologist, therapist from the team. And then like, oh, contract negotiations are coming up. And, the boss wants to know, hey, what do you think of this person? Right? What do you think about their health? What do you think about
Totally.
mental?
Yeah.
Right. So in my experience so far, it's the seekers of the world that are coming to this work. And I know some people are, but I'm also very early in this work. I've only been working at the top level of professional sports now for the last few years. And so I think I need more data points to really understand what's going on, because I'm really kind of hearing from my clients and I'm hearing from like what's going on in their circles. But from what I hear so far, there's not a ton of people doing this work, but there are some people who do, right? There's some people who are going and doing, some plant medicine ceremonies. Some people are seeking out different energy healers, because most of them do body work, but then some people who do body work also get it more into the ethereal and they do energy work on you as well. So I know people who've done that as well. And so, yeah, I think that, I don't know. When I was in college, right? So when I was playing football in college in 2009, 2010, my like team, we didn't have a sports psychologist, but there was someone who did that at the university. She's taught a class on it. And they kind of thought that this, by this time, everyone was going to have someone like this. It was going to be just like a strength conditioning coach. And I thought that as well. I mean, that's now, 15, 16 years later. I thought that it'd be farther along by now, but it doesn't seem as prevalent. And I think it's because the depth of vulnerability that's required to do this work. And in my experience, it's not really a group type of thing to really go through this type of transformation. It's very intimate. It's a one-to-one thing. And so it's almost like we all need our own special sensei to guide us on our journey. And I think we're not quite there yet.
Well, it will be interesting to watch unfold, right? And I think just like as more and more people find their senseis and they start to talk about it and they start to have like external results, it's going to compound.
Yeah. I mean, that's my hope, bro. Like literally, so I have my fighter who talks about me on Rogan, and it's like, that's how I got my platform, because Rogan doesn't really have these people on very often. I mean, if ever. He's had one hypnosis person on like very, very many years ago. And I'm the first person of this nature he's had on, just because his curiosity of like, oh, well, this UFC fighter is a stud. So I want to know who he's working with. And so he's very close. He was ranked world number 1 at welterweight. Hopefully he gets his title shot within the next year. And it's like, look, here's a world champion who did this consciousness work. And look at him. Here he is. And he's talking openly about it, right? I have my box shoes fighting this month. Hopefully he goes, wins his world championship, and he gets the platform and he gets to speak about it. So I kind of see myself as a conduit of bringing this more into the mainstream by helping these people achieve this high level of material success that they can then reflect back into telling people. Like, so much of it was like the work I did in my own consciousness.
I feel exactly the same, man. It's like the way forward is shifting culture, and culture changes when people of distinguishment talk about this stuff. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
that's the way. And so it's part of what I was trying to do with my book, where it was like, yeah, like, I'm not the most successful entrepreneur, but hey, I sold a business to Salesforce, the fifth biggest software company in the world, and the consciousness stuff is where it's at, right? And that'll resonate with like a certain portion of people. But I think as you see more and more and more of that in my world, which is the business world, people are going to start to ask questions. There's going to be that curiosity and exploration opportunity for them.
Yeah. I'm already seeing in the business world as well. In sports, for whatever reason, like the athletes I work with, they have referred me to a couple other people, but like they don't talk about it so openly to where like all their teammates are like, I need to do this too. Whereas in business, it feels like much more of like a sharing, open space where they want to tell their fellow entrepreneurs and coworkers about this, and they want to get involved in it. Like I talked about, like Gary Vaynerchuk hired me to work with his executives, and then he started to spread me out and had me kind of like go in and saturate his team with this work because he saw the value in it, right? Like I took on a client a couple of weeks ago, and then he's a CEO, and they were having this big company retreat, so he brought me in and I did it. The same thing happened with one of my clients, the CEO at a sports agency. He brought me in after working with me. So it's like I'm getting into these businesses and speaking to everyone through the leaders. And so that's also why I'm excited about working with the leaders, because they allow me to access more people.
That's really cool. I also wonder, a lot of these athletes are young guys. I know when I was in my 20s, which is like the prime for a lot of these guys, like this couldn't have been further from my radar, And yeah, but I could also see that like if this is a competitive advantage, hey, maybe you want to kind of keep that to yourself. I could see that mindset being a factor.
That's part of it for sure. Yeah. And you're right. Like I think a lot of them are just like, whew, like they're like, I made it. I don't need anything. I'm making millions of dollars. I'm living my dream. And it's usually like, so I usually get people when they're like in their like late 20s oftentimes, or early 30s, where it's like, okay, maybe they start to have a family of kids, and it's like life is becoming more real, and the challenges of sustaining this high level have become more difficult. And that's when they start seeking it.
What is something that you're just personally like really excited about right now?
I mean, the big thing in my mind's eye is this retreat center that I'm building. I'm just so excited, like, to bring people into this space and create this reprieve for leaders to come and rejuvenate, and just disconnect from their phones, from calls, from texts, from emails, and just to come and have their soul just rejuvenated and nourished, and to clear out all the shit they've been carrying around with them, the weight that is really like creating artificial complexity in their life. And I'm just so excited about creating that space for people, because I want to see them thrive, and it just feels like very nourishing for me to be that centerpiece that creates that healing for others, because that means I get to live in that as well. And so it's like I can only create the experience of who I am. And so I'm just very excited about that season that's coming up for me.
That's amazing, man. Well, I hope to experience it in real life when it's done. And so we'll have to stay in touch on that. And I want to give you an opportunity to tell people about your book. And I know you got a great Instagram account, and just where the best places are for people to kind of continue exploring your work.
Yeah, I wrote a book. It's called The Success Code. It's available on Amazon. It's also available on all the audiobook platforms, Audible, Spotify, so you can listen to it there as well. I read it myself, and the book is written really conversationally. Like, obviously you guys can hear from this conversation between me and Scott, like we're a couple bros, and I write the book that way. Like I just tell my deepest, darkest vulnerabilities and secrets, and I also talk about my triumphs, and you can kind of hear from that book like where I was to how I got to where I am now. And that's like was my purpose, is like, if can I be as real as possible about my story and not skip any of the messy stuff, so people can actually see how this process of transmuting your beliefs actually changes your life. And there's different results. You were here, now you're there. And so I go in depth on that. And the second half of the book is a playbook. So it's like basically it's guided coaching through my process. And I also put on my YouTube channel, YouTube videos. So you can follow along with the book on YouTube and get coached me almost like a one-on-one experience where I take you through that. So that's awesome. And yeah, if anyone is interested in working with me or bringing me in to speak anywhere, you can find me on my website, thebrandonepstein.com. That's where all my stuff is.
Awesome, brother. Well, thank you so much, man, for sharing your wisdom and also just the work that you're doing in the world. You know, you're helping spread consciousness, and it's epic, man. And I know you're having a lot of fun doing it.
Thank you, bro. It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.